Hi, welcome back to my channel, Politics in Plain English. And the reason I chose this channel, like I said, is because there's so many things that's going on in the world today, in the news, and a lot of times it's not put in plain English so that we can understand. So what I want to go over today is how to read the Bible. Yes, you heard me correctly. How to read the Bible. A lot of people just look at the Bible, they pick it up, and they say, "Oh, just go at it like that." Now, I have a couple of different Bibles, and I also have read Josephus and other accounts like Enoch and what have you, because this is what I have found with the Bible. It is not to be read like a storybook because even though there are 66 books in the Bible, and if you were to add back Enoch, that would be 67, it's not to be read like a storybook. It's sort of like a puzzle. And I actually enjoy working puzzles. I've been doing this pretty much all my life. And when you work a puzzle, you notice how you have to first get the edges correct, right? Before you do anything. Otherwise, you'd be there all day doing nothing. So I always get the edges correct. Then I put in all the pieces that look similar. And once you do that, when you start actually going putting it together, you look for the different shades of colors as well as the shapes. And that's how you put your puzzle together. Well, that's how you're going to do the Bible too. Because even though it appears that all you have to do is just read from Genesis to Revelation, it's not necessarily true because the Bible has to interpret itself. And some of the answers in Genesis may not be located in the next chapter, it may be further on in the book. For example, in the book of Genesis, it gives us a preview or overview of what or how mankind fell into sin. So, what you want to do is you want to read the first chapter, and it will tell you, like you see, my book is already marked and what have you. So it tells you about Adam and Eve and how Adam basically was in the garden. He didn't even know he needed a wife. He was happy with the animals. Then God created him a wife, not a girlfriend. So once he created the wife, he presented her to Adam. And once Adam saw his beautiful wife, he couldn't believe it. "Oh, you're bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." And they were fine until Satan entered into the picture. And we all know what happened then. He approached the female because women, we have a tendency, we're not as strong as the guy. So he figured out a way to get it to the man. He had to get through the woman. So that's what he did. He went through Eve to get to Adam and questioned her about, did God really say that you shouldn't eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, which was a lie because God told Adam that all of the trees of the garden he may eat. It was just the one tree that he was to stay away from. So Eve corrected him. And so then, of course, we know that Satan told her, "Oh, that's not true. God knows the very day you eat of that, you'll be like God." And so she's looking at the fruit and saying, "Wow, it doesn't look poisonous or anything." So anyway, we know what happened. But what is very important is what happened after Adam and Eve had children. We know Cain and Abel. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because everybody pretty much knows that. Cain became jealous of his brother Abel, and he ended up killing his brother. He had him come over here, said, "Come over here, let me tell you something." As soon as he got him out there nowhere, he killed his brother. But now what is very important is what happened in Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4 is where we read that Cain had a mark that was put on him, like a tattoo, something permanent. So no one would ever come along and kill Cain. And at Genesis chapter 4, This is where we know violence and domination came into a being, because Cain was a very violent person, and all his offspring that he had, they were just like him. They were very violent. But this is something that's very interesting. In Genesis chapter 5, if you take all of the names that are mentioned in Genesis chapter 5, if you put them all together, it tells God's plan of how he was going to send his son to the earth. And it starts with the name Adam, Seth, Enosh, Mahaliel, Jared, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. So we know that Noah means peace. So when you put these names together, it speaks about how God was going to bring to the earth his son, and he would give us rest, because the word rest, Noah means rest or peace. So after that, what is so important is that Genesis chapter 6. Now, what is interesting about Genesis chapter 6 is that Satan, he saw the last thing, or heard the last thing that God was going to do about bringing his son to earth. He had to counteract that. So in Genesis chapter 6, he says that Satan had a plan, and he needed to come into the earth to contaminate the DNA of human beings. So him and all of his demon hordes, they made themselves these beautiful, handsome bodies, and they came into the earth. Now, what was interesting is that the men at that time, their average height was like 5'6", and we know this from archaeology and what have you. So when Satan, his demons came in, they were tall, handsome, maybe like 6'2" or whatever, very handsome, beautiful, and strong. So they came to entice the women. And so these women running around, oh my God, these guys are so handsome. The sons, they call themselves the sons of the true God. And so they wanted to have relations with these women, which they did. And if you read in the book of Enoch, it tells you actually what happened. No human being can actually carry a baby from a Nephilim or whatever, because you're human. These people, like these angels, were not. So no child actually was carried to 9 months. It was impossible. So anyway, once these women started having these babies, they were, you know, you couldn't have your child play with them because they grew too fast, they were too strong. And the book Enoch mentions about Hercules. Hercules was not a good guy, he was a bad guy. He was, as a baby, when he was in the crib, he actually killed a snake, they said, with his bare hands. And there was no way you could control them. The only way there was any discipline, the father of these angels that were his child, they were the only ones that could discipline their children, because these half human, half spirit creatures. So that's what happened. They ran amok. And these guys, they were so bad that God had to put them to death, because it would have been no human beings able left on the earth, because what the angels did when they came to the earth, they took all the women that they wanted, and the men had no one to marry. So what happened next was homosexuality. The earthly men started having sexual relations with each other, because there was no women to marry. All the angels had done that. And the animals too, that God had set aside to have it made as a sacrifice, well, they were contaminated too, because when earthly men started having relations with each other, they also started having relations with animals. And these were the animals that were going to be sacrificed, for the sins of mankind. So nothing was going the way it was supposed to. So anyway, I don't want to make this too long. So if you enjoyed that, I have more in the making. So share and subscribe. Thank you.